Hello everybody, and welcome to Ghost. This is my favorite Templar build. It is a two-handed bow stamina Templar that uses mist form. It hits like a truck, has crazy regen, and awesome mobility. This is one of my favorite builds to play open world PvP. This build is very high risk, high reward, and definitely rewards a fast, dodgy playstyle. We have got a lot of PvP footage for this build, so check out the last half of the video if you guys want to see that very lengthy PvP commentary. And then finally, guys, in the upcoming Murkmire patch, ZeniMax is hitting speed builds hard and trying to reduce the speed of your build in PvP big time. Big nerfs to the swift traits, etc. However, with the rebuild on Ghost, we are only 4% slower and every single one of our other stats has gone up. So without further ado, guys, let's take a look at that build. Alright guys, so let's take a look at our stat sheet to begin. So to begin, we are an Orc on this build. Now, this is on the PTS, so I'm not on my normal Templar, which is a Nord. I would highly recommend for this spec, you go with any good stamina race. Orc is awesome, Redguard is awesome, Nord's a good choice, Khajiit's not bad, Bosmer's not bad. Any good stamina race, Imperial works well too. But I think Orc is probably BIS for this spec because it is a speed and burst-based spec. Orc gets the sprint speed as well as the additional damage and the max stam. Yeah, Orc has to be kind of BIS for this thing. But anyway, taking a look at our stat page. So from Ghost last patch, we have actually seen our stats go down a little bit. We've got 10k Magicka, just under 20k HP, and 27k Stamina. Looking a little bit on the slim end, hey, for that max stat. Now, the reason that our max stat's so low is because we are running some sets to really push some good damage on this build, as well as some sets for our buff coverage. So we had to omit a little bit of the max stam, but don't worry, we're still pushing crazy high weapon damage on this build. Our recoveries, on the other hand, are much better than they were last patch, minus the stamina recovery. However, we have the change to the glyph here, giving us an additional 480 recovery or so. So when we buff up with our potion, our recovery's coming in at 1300 Magicka, 1000 health recovery, and 1500 stamina recovery, plus our rune, so just around 2k stamina recovery on this build. Really, really nice. This is better sustain than Ghost had last patch. Honestly, this is a really nice step up for Ghost. The mag recovery is a big deal. We also are running the tri-stat potion, so our Magicka recovery has actually gone up quite a bit compared to Ghost last patch. So the lower Magicka pool isn't as big a deal because we have that ample recovery there. And then on top of it, we've got 1k health recovery on a vampire that uses mist form. Now, I know health recovery on a vampire seems counterintuitive, but hear me out for 1 second, guys. Health recovery is going to heal us 1000 health every 2 seconds while we are in mist form still. So this is actually the only healing source in the game that goes through mist form, and the big reason why vampirism gives us that health recovery debuff is because it would be too strong if it didn't with things like mist form. So the fact that we have the mist form and the health recovery is just going to allow us to be that much tankier in mist. This will help also make up for the fact that we're a little bit lower max HP than we were last patch. The extra health regen tick will result in us being a little bit more resistant to burst than our HP kind of suggests here, so that helps as well. And then, of course, the supplemental health recovery during combat is just nice for overall healing, and it will kind of ease up your sustain throughout the fight as well. So taking a look at our weapon damage on this build, when we buff up, we have got 4,023 weapon damage, sitting at just about 56% crit. Our crit rate has gone up a lot this patch. We, of course, are running the Swordslinger set, so we have got an additional 450 invisible weapon damage on top of that, bringing us to 4,600. And then on top of it, we have got the Master Bow with an infused enchant, giving us an additional 300 plus 450 base weapon damage to throw on top of that. Yeah. So we're sitting at something like 5,600 weapon damage on this build. Very, very, very high amount of weapon damage. We are going to hit super, super hard. Actually, probably more like 5.7, 5.8k. We've got a massive amount of weapon damage and a massive crit rate. We're going to hit super hard and super consistently hard. On top of it, this crit rate plus weapon damage is going to give us a great amount of healing on this build to go with it, and that is going to be really, really nice. Now, taking a look at our physical and spell resists, when we are sitting in our rune, 22k physical, 25k spell, and 1900 crit resist. And then, of course, when we step out of the rune, losing that little bit of extra bonus, 19.5k physical, 22.5k spell. So good resists for medium armor, nothing too crazy. Ghost is a very fast-paced, very kitey medium armor build, so we don't need massive resist for this spec for it to be effective. We should more focus on getting that big max damage and that big regen more than anything else. Now, for the Munduses on this build, guys, we are using the Steed Mundus this patch. Due to the nerf to Swift, Steed is definitely the way to go because it gives us 10% movement speed. Honestly, it's hard to not pick the Steed now for a speed build because of that 10% movement speed. It's a big amount of speed to give you. On top of it, it gives us that health recovery to go with it, and that's just going to pair well with our other sources of health recovery coming from our drink here, giving us actually some pretty bulky health recovery on the Vampire Templar, which is really, really nice. Like I mentioned, pairs really well with just attrition fighting and mist form in general. Now, for the drink that we're using, we are using the all primary stat recovery drink on this build. I think that this is definitely the drink that you want to go with. Health recovery, magicka, and stamina recovery, large amounts of all of it, and it's going to really help. The health recovery also important again for this build because we are going with quite a bit of health recovery to stack in that mist form. The other option that people might want to run here is the Orzorga Smoked Bear Haunch, getting some more max HP out of it, but in my opinion, I think you're better off getting more regen than trying to have more HP on this build. Having high HP will make you more resistant to kind of getting smacked down. However, if you're playing the build correctly, you shouldn't be getting smacked down by things really quickly because you're on your toes and you're dodging most attacks anyway. So I would recommend going with the higher regen. I think it's better for a spec like this, even though you omit the HP. And then for the potions that we're using on this build, guys, we are using the Tri-Stat potions. And finally, Ghost actually gets to run the Tri-Stat potion, and we get to keep the full buff coverage. Now, the reason I've switched to Tri-Stats, of course, is because we are getting the crit buff on our bar now. We're no longer omitting the crit buff from our bar, so we don't have to run a potion that gives us that crit buff. This is going to be nice because it really gives us more magicka to work with. Ghost can really use its magicka pool very effectively on the Stamina Templar to stay alive. We've got Mist Form and Purge, both fantastic magicka skills. And then on top of it, access to that magicka return will also give us the extra 20% magicka recovery, just giving us more sustain on top of it. Now, let's take a look at the sets that we're running, guys. So to begin, we have 2 Slime Craw on, and this is bread and butter for Burst Templar. I think 2 Slime Craw is so great. We get that weapon crit, and then of course we get that Minor Berserk for 8% damage increase. If we wanted the Minor Berserk on a Templar, we would have to run Resto Staff, and we are not using it on this build, so Slime Craw is BIS for Burst. The next set that we're running, of course I've mentioned before, is the Sword Singer set, and we only have this on our two-handed bar. This is going to give us huge amounts of damage and healing on our two-handed bar, and we are running a massive Greatsword Burst kit, so this pairs really well with the skills that we're using on this build. And the other weapon that we're running is, of course, the Master Bow. This is going to give us even more buff when we set on our back bar with our Poison Injection. The Poison Injection, of course, is a fantastic ability to put on the target. Going to give us a huge amount of weapon damage bonus for landing it. 300 plus 452 base, so 750 base. It's like 1,100, 1,200 weapon damage in the end. Yeah, massive buff to our damage and healing just for landing a Poison Injection on this bow. And then the final set that we're running, and this is the biggest change to Ghost. I know we're no longer running auto and we've switched to Sword Singer, and there's good reason for that. We'll talk about it more when we get to our skill loadout. But we are actually running the Griffin set now. And the Griffin set is a great choice, and I picked it for, well, a couple reasons, so let's get into it. First of all, we get the weapon crit, weapon damage. Fantastic. That is why our crit rate is so high on this build, because we're running this set. And then, of course, after dealing direct damage, we gain Minor Force and Minor Expedition for 3 seconds, increasing our critical damage done by 10% and our movement speed by 10%. So this is a double whammy. Using this set allows us to not only get 10% movement speed for that minor expedition from it, so we can drop some Swift in the jewelry, which of course got nerfed pretty hard this patch, but on top of it, it also gives us that minor force buff when we're dealing direct damage. And that minor force buff is very important for a burst build like Ghost, because that is a fairly sizable amount of damage to have that buff up at all the time. So running this set allows us to have both of these buffs up without having to use any skill slots or anything for it. Really, really nice, because it actually allows us to drop running the Psijic skill on our front bar and opening up using a different ability. So I think that this is pretty BIS for Ghost. And then, of course, there is the movement speed portion. That 10% movement speed versus the Swift nerf, very important. Pairing that, of course, with our Steed Mundus, we are sitting at 26% bonus movement speed, with Wind Running 28% bonus movement speed, versus Ghost on the old patch is at 32% movement speed. So we only take a 4% movement speed cut on Ghost this patch. Otherwise, we have kept the build strong in every other department and even buffed it in regen and damage and healing. So ZeniMax trying to nerf my speed, we'll always find a way around it. So we're using the Griffin set, really great set for this build. Of course, we are a little bit slower on the retreat with this, unless we're turning around to land an arrow every now and then to keep that movement speed buff up, which if you're playing the build correctly, you should be doing anyway. So there you go. Now, taking a look at the weapon enchantments and traits here, we're going to start on the bow. Of course, it's infused with the Berserker enchant, really great for that Master Bow. The Greatsword is Nirnhoned with the Disease enchant. Nirnhoned, of course, BIS for damage and healing, very important for this build to have both. And then that Disease damage is awesome because it's going to give us great upfront burst with our Greatsword. And then on top of it, it has a chance of applying the healing debuff. So there you go. That's going to help out as well. Now, for the jewelry, guys, there are big changes to the jewelry on this build. We are running 2 infused and 1 swift now because swift has been nerfed from 10 to 6%. And this is a good choice. The infused here is essentially to make up for the lack of stat by running a 5-piece buff set like the Griffin set here. So that's going to make up for that there. And then, of course, we have the 1 swift just to keep our movement speed fairly high. And that's where we're taking really that 4% speed nerf is just on the 1 swift that we have left here. For the enchants, we want to go full weapon damage. Very important that you push max damage on this build. Helps out a lot. If you're playing in no CP, you want to make some changes to the jewelry, I think. For no CP, because our max dam is so low, this is what you want to do. You definitely want to go with Robust instead of Infused for these 2, and then at least one of them put a Stamina Recovery glyph on. If you need more sustain, you can put the second one on. But that's what I would say for no CP Ghost. It's really the only adjustment I think you need to make to the build is just switch out the Infused for Robust and then go for a regen glyph instead. For the gear that we're wearing, the traits are 5 well-fitted and 2 impenetrable. I go heavier on the well-fitted for Ghost, of course, because it is a very rolly and kitey build, so we want to stay on our toes. I think it is worthwhile to have a much heavier well-fitted spread for your gear. And then for the enchants, I've actually gone with the full max stamina, and that's to preserve that 27k stamina value, which is already still fairly low. It's not very high, but we're still going to deal massive amounts of damage. Don't worry. We just have the lower stam pool. But yeah, the reason we went full stam is to preserve that pool, and we could give up the HP and the Magicka. Now, if you want, you can still go with some tri-stat glyphs here. You're just going to have a smaller stam pool to work with. I would say at most 3 tri-stat glyphs on the big pieces. Don't go much past that, or your stam pool might get a little bit too slim to be very workable. But there you go. So let's take a look at the abilities that we're using on this spec. So starting on our Greatsword Bar here, we have got Executioner, and I, of course, want to buff up for you guys so you can see our tooltips on this. We got the 6k Executioner coming in, our primary execute for the build. This is what we're going to use to finish players off. 50% or lower health, we're going to throw this ability on them, and it's going to hit hard. And it's also very cheap, so that's good too. The next skill that we have is Critical Rush. Now, Critical Rush is coming in at 7,460 damage on the tooltip, which is, it is high. It's definitely a high crit rush tooltip. However, it gets quite a bit higher. This is actually around 8k when we have our Master Bow enchant on, And then when we also have our poison injection or our berserker enchant on top of it, our crit rush actually gets up to around 8.6k on the tooltip. So our crit rush deals a massive amount of damage, and if you guys saw the recent Templar build that I did that was like full glass cannon Templar, this crit rush is just a few percentage short of as strong as that one is with the poison injection up. So we hit a very powerful crit rush on this build. You should be able to hit 9 to 10k crit rushes on squishy players with this spec when you have them fully set up and you hit them with that big boy crit rush. So yeah, this is going to hit very hard. Of course, it will deal additional damage based on the distance we are from the target, and it will always be a critical strike. Really nice, very strong gap closer, and a big part of the Ghost combo is to make this gap closer hit hard. Now, the next ability that we have, and this is in place of the Psijic ability that we were running last patch, because of course we don't need that minor force buff, and we still get minor expedition from our bow. We have gone with Evil Hunter, and I've gone with Evil Hunter simply because, while slotted, we get that major savagery buff, and of course, slotting this here will give us 3% additional weapon damage on top of it. And one thing that Ghost has always struggled with in PvP is against a stealthed opponent. Ghost does not have a good stealth detect. Now, in the past, we were running Dawnbreaker, which is an AoE, which works as a stealth detect, but because we're going to be using Onslaught this patch, I thought, hey, Evil Hunter would be great. We get the crit buff, opening up that potion slot. On top of it, we get some weapon damage and that much-needed stealth detect to actually give us a bit of an edge against something like a Nightblade, which is something that as a stamina v stamina build, I really struggle against the Nightblades because we don't have something to pull them out of stealth. So this is going to be very useful for PvP to have this ability here for the passive and the active stealth detect slot that it gives, especially on a build like Ghost. Now, the next skill that we have is Rally, and this is our only heal for the build. It's our primary heal, it's our burst heal, and it's our heal over time. This paired with the health regen that we have will give us some pretty decent healing over time, which is really nice. And then on top of it, Rally will give us a nice beefy burst heal on this build. We are running Sword Singer, so we get a nice big bonus to the amount of healing that Rally does. And if we look at our tooltips on Rally, they are pretty nice too when we're standing in all our stuff. 1460 health every 2 seconds, and that burst heal will be nice and beefy when it's fully bulked up too. The next ability that we're running is Binding Javelin, and this is our primary stun. Our Adric Spear skill for that 10% crit damage bonus, very important because we have such a massive crit rate on this build. And then of course it will stun the opponent with a chance to proc Burning Light. The range stun is really nice. It lets us set up a big crit rush combo at a distance. They've changed the Javelin not to knock back your opponent anymore, but just to stun them, which is good and bad for Ghost. It's bad if you're at close range, but good if you're at long range and want to land the combo. So there you go. I kind of like the change, but I'm pretty impartial either way. So there you go. Just great stun for the build, and awesome that we have it slotted for those Adric passives. And then, of course, this will be access to Minor Protection for us this patch. Minor Protection got moved from Restoring Light to the Adric Spear skill line, and we get it every time we pass or we use an Adric Spear ability. So only for 3 seconds. So we're essentially kind of losing a good uptime on Minor Protection to get all the other stuff we're getting this patch. So, taking a look at the ultimate we're running, we, of course, are using Onslaught. Coming in at nearly a 22k tooltip, fully buffed, we will make it over 24k at least on this build. We will hit people very hard with the Onslaught on this build. On a mob, I hit 49k with this one. That's beautiful. On a player, that's easily a 20k Onslaught against someone unprepared and unawares and no percentage damage reduction. So yeah, we can hit very, very hard with this ultimate. It, of course, will return the cost of the ultimate if we get the kill with it. It strips the opponent's armor and gives it to us. So not only is it a tank shredder, but it can turn us into a tank for a while too. And if we get the cost of this ultimate back, it pairs so well with either itself again or even any other ult that we want to use going, of course, into precog on the back bar. But there you go, guys. I, of course, have picked Onslaught this patch because we no longer have an 18% chance to miss it on a player. That is super important. Last patch, it was so terrible using an ultimate like this because you'd miss it to a shuffle. So glad for that shuffle change. We're going to be running Onslaught. It is BIS tank killing ultimate. And yeah, Ghost is going to love this in PvP because tanks are going to be afraid of us. And I really like that. Now, Let's take a look at that bow bar, guys. The first ability that we have is Poison Injection. This is going to be our primary kind of buff spammable. We're going to put this on an opponent at a distance. It's going to give us that Master Bow buff. It's going to put that nasty dot on them, and of course that dot will deal additional damage as their health drops below 50%. So it's a bit of a double execute with our Executioner and the Onslaught. Oh my god, we got a lot of kill potential on this build. The Poison Injection, of course, pairs really well with Power of the Light, our second kind of burst ability that we have here. And Power of the Light is going to deal a little bit of physical damage to them and then store damage on them, releasing all of it after the 6-second period. And of course, it applies the Minor Fracture debuff on your opponent, so they take a little bit more damage from you as well. Now, the thing I want to note here is that we actually have a pretty low tooltip on Power of the Light, and that's because we have a very low max stamina pool. Now, this kind of limits how much damage our Power of the Light can do, but most of the time, you don't approach your max pottle damage anyway, so it's not a massive deal. Anyhow, let's move on. The next ability that we have is Elusive Mist. This is our primary defensive Magicka skill that we have. 25% damage reduction when we're in our Mist form. It, of course, is going to shut off our recovery, but the change to us running the Magicka Sustain Potion means that even with the shut-off recovery, we can still chunk a lot of Magicka back by drinking the potion. So we'll be able to do a lot of back-to-back Mists on this build, more than Ghost on live right now. So a huge buff to our Magicka Sustain for this build. And then, of course, we have that 30% movement speed. This Mist is 4% slower this patch than it is during the Somerset patch. We only lost 4% speed, so it's not a massive deal, guys. However, it is still a bit of a hit. The next ability that we have is Extended Ritual. This is going to be your purge for your Templar. It is bread and butter Templar. This is one of the best abilities that Templar has access to. Remove 5 harmful negative effects from yourself immediately. And then, of course, an ally can activate the synergy and remove all the negative effects from themselves as well. Yeah, this is BIS Templar. With our increased Magicka Sustain, we can use this even more, which is super awesome. Between this Mist form and our Rally, we should have no issues staying alive while using Kiting and Terrain. Now, the final ability that we have here is Restoring Focus. And Restoring Focus is here for that armor buff that it gives, as well as that 240 stamina every 1 second. Man, this is, I don't even know what to say. This is a massive deal for Stamina Templar. Stamina Templar just got handed a huge amount of sustain with this change in the Murkmire patch, and we're going to be able to fight for very long periods of time thanks to this ability by itself, pretty much. It's giving us a massive amount of sustain and that armor buff. Really fantastic, super cheap, 792 stamina, really awesome. So it pays for itself within a few seconds. As long as you don't spam it, you're fine. Really awesome, really awesome. And now, for the ultimate on our bow bar, we, of course, are running Precognition. And Precognition was chosen because it is the best ultimate in the game for World PvP on a speed build. And I mean that. There's no better ultimate defensively, and even offensively, it can be a good ultimate too. But defensively, there is no better ultimate for a movement-based PvP build than Precognition. It allows you to take your speed and push it to another level by teleporting around like crazy. And you can use it to just get out of a bad situation too. You find yourself getting bursted super hard, precog out of that situation. We can, of course, cast this ability while we are crowd controlled. That is a huge deal. It breaks us out of CC and allows us to escape it so we don't have to CC break into the cast. Kind of saving us in PvP, honestly. There's a lot of times where I'd use precog to break the stun. If I had to break the stun then cast, I wouldn't have made it in time. So the precog, using it while stunned, is very valuable. You can go with the other morph just to keep minor protection up on our back bar at all times. It will give you the same tank ability for Ghost that you had last patch if you, of course, wanted to keep that minor protection buff. However, guys, it's up to you. I think precog, the ability to use it while stunned, is probably more worthwhile, but again, it's up to the user. So there you go. Now let's take a look at the champion points that we're running on this spec, guys. So to begin, we have got 45 in Warlord, 14 Sprinter, and 5 in Bashing. We've got to break free, we've got to sprint, and we've got to bash. We got a lot of well fitted on, so we don't have to put a lot here. Bashing is pretty important, but we don't do it super often. And then breaking free, of course, is, well, you got to do it in PvP. If you're not breaking stuns, you're in trouble. In the lover tree, we've got 64 Mooncalf, 43 in Healthy, and 43 in Arcanist. So a big focus here on Mooncalf and then our other regens. This is a very regen-heavy spec, and I really like that. I've always wanted Ghost to be more regen-heavy in the future, and I'm glad that I've finally been able to build especially health recovery into it. It's pairing really well with the Mist form. You guys will really like it, Mist and health regen. Trust me, it's very, very strong. And yeah, so just big, heavy recoveries here. We gotta have it. Of course, we've got that passive in Wind Running for that 2% movement speed and the increased health and magicka recovery while we're sprinting. Really nice for this build again. In the Shadow Tree, we've got 44 in Tumbling and 31 in Shadow Ward. We've got to roll dodge a lot, and of course, it's PvP. We need to block too. Big focus, of course, on Tumbling because we will be rolling more than blocking. In the Apprentice Tree, we've got nothing. In the Atronach, we have got a standard burst tree, 81 Mastered Arm, 39 Physical Weapon Expert. Big focus on Mastered Arm because all of our damaging abilities are direct damage, so that will be awesome. And then Physical Weapon Expert for our light and heavy attacks as well. The Tactician passive is very important here for that roll dodge to set an opponent off balance. This allows us to stun players also with our light and heavy attacks off the off balance too. And of course, we get the Exploiter passive for that 10% bonus damage against an off balance opponent. So dodging an attack will allow us to retaliate with even more damage against that opponent. So in the Ritual Tree, I actually am going to change this up just a little bit. We're going to put a little bit more into Precise Strikes here and omit a little bit of Piercing. And the reason we're going to go a little bit higher in Precise Strike is simply because we have such a massive crit rate on this build. It is worthwhile going for it, and we have the guaranteed crit from Crit Rush. So our crit rate on this build is probably going to be around like 55 to 60% pretty consistently, which is really nice. So Precise Strike is going to be nice. Of course, with the changes to damage shields, Precise Strike is going to be great this patch too because we can crit those damage shields, and Piercing is also going to affect the damage shield as well. For the important passives in this tree, we got that Last Stand. Really nice. If we drop below 20% HP, we get that Major Heroism. Super awesome because we do play a fairly low HP bursty build, and we can come back from low HP. Exploiter is going to be great. We talked about that, the off-balance bonus, and then 9% additional weapon crit from that Perfect Strike, which is also awesome, giving us that whopping crit rate that we have on this build. In the Steed Tree, we have got 51 Ironclad, 63 Resistant, 30 Spell, and 30 Medium Armor Focus. Big focus on Resistant, followed up by a big focus on Ironclad. A lot of direct damage attacks are what's going to be bursting us down in PvP. Resistant, of course, reduce incoming crit damage. Very important, especially for champion point PvP. And then just to bulk up our resistances here, we've got 30 in each of these trees. And these are really nice for those front heavy resistance that they give. In the Lady Tree, we got 32 Hardy, 32 Elemental Defender, 0 Thick Skin again. Don't really need the thick skin because we have such good mag sustain, so much access to purge and mist to suppress dots. We have a lot of dot counters, so it's not a big deal. But of course, we want to reduce the incoming physical and flame damage or magic damage that we take. And then in the Lord Tree, we have got 32 for that extra healing. And there you go, guys. That is the build. All right, guys, let's jump into some PvP commentary. So, to begin, we, of course, are going to get attacked by a sniper off our horse here. Go into the dodge roll. We're going to purge and get our rally up and just pull ourselves behind this tree here so we have a little bit of cover. And then just take a little bit of a peel to the side here just to kind of see what's going on. So we got a bit of a tail. As the meteor comes down, we go into our mist form being such a great counter versus an ultimate like meteor. I'm going to take no damage, easily shrug off the incoming stun, and just get out of there. And as you can see, blue is pushing out on the yellow, and we're just going to throw a few arrows in, but just being careful here because we're in a tricky spot as the only red player, so we just have to make sure we don't get caught in too terrible of a position. Here you see we got some blue behind us attacking us, and we're just going to make a sprint towards the mile gate here. Now that we've kind of gauged the momentum of the blue group heading outside of the gate, now's the time to kind of go in behind them, just because we have the highest chance of actually making it in. And lo and behold, we engage with these players here. The enemy player throws the meteor there. We hold block and go for the javelin, stunning the other player there, also blocking the meteor. And then we're just going to do another peel here as we just kind of get more pressure from the outside. Little bit of a roll there to dodge that incoming stun off the fire staff there. There we take the stun as we drop down. Just trying to position ourselves here, but there you see that Radiant Destruction after the other player hits us with some bursts. So we got to be careful of that bit of combo there. And we take another Fire Staff stun just coming around the corner here. Not fast enough to the block there. Ideally, we should try to block all those incoming stuns that we can. So here we're just going to do it again. Peel around the side here. We missed the block yet again. Oh my gosh. Just going to heal up as he goes for the Radiant. He goes for another Radiant. We stun him with the Javelin, go into our Dawnbreaker, try to put some damage for the finisher, but he goes into the block there and ends up healing himself. And we just got a bit of pressure from the other Nightblades, so we're just going to do another peel out again and just see if we can re-engage with these guys yet again here. So this guy comes up top by himself, so we're going to fight a little bit here. He holds block for a long time with a Greatsword out. So I know he's not going to have the stamina to get back up after this stun. And there you see, he drops his block. We stun him. Easy finish to bring him down. Now these guys here put a bit of pressure on me. I go for a run down the hallway, go into mist form, and head back to prevent the stun. End up getting knocked off the edge there. Just going to try to keep this guy from rezzing the other player here. Keep dropping those stuns there. There comes another meteor. We break the stun, go into mist form to mitigate the meteor damage. This warden here is doing a lot of damage with her shulks here. So we actually managed to stun her there. She doesn't break the stun, and we just put her down there. So a nice quick kill off on her. And then we come back down here. This guy managed to get rezzed, but it's not a big deal because we did manage to finish off the other player, and he's going to have lower resource after the res, so we should be able to put some pressure into him. And now we're fighting these two guys here, making sure to use our movement. Here you see we're just rotating around on them, trying to stay behind them. Great stun there, knocking him off the edge into the Dawnbreaker to bring him down. Now, of course, in the coming Murkmire patch, I won't be running Dawnbreaker, guys. This is just, of course, footage from the live patch because, well, the Murkmire patch is not live yet, and this is a world build, so I didn't want to do, like, duels or whatever on it. It's not super appropriate for a build like this. But as you can see there, that is the end of that footage there, and we're going to be moving on to some more PvP, and I believe in this one I am running the two-handed ultimate. Now, I have a bit of reservations against running the two-handed ultimate with the way that Shuffle is on live right now, because you have a chance to miss that ultimate, but don't worry, once the Murkmire patch hits, you will no longer have a passive chance to miss your ultimates on someone's Shuffle or anything. So anyway, I did use the two-hand ultimate on the live server still, though, and it is very, very strong. And it's just going to be even better next patch because we'll be pushing better damage. So there you go. Here you see we're just fighting these blues here. We managed to get this DK all set up with the Poddle. He doesn't break the stun. We follow it with a light attack into the Berserker Strike. While he's on the ground, I don't think he expects that massive damage spike with the Armor Pierce there. And we just bring him down super quickly. And you really see right there the power of Berserker Strike and how it can very quickly turn a tanky opponent into something that you can easily cut through. That guy ends up going down to the power of the light. Just a lot of pressure there. He's trying to roll away, but he doesn't go for many heals, and we end up killing him there. And that leaves us with this last player to fight, and he's got a lot of hit points, and he's fairly tanky. So what we're going to do, and this is something that I think if you're new to this build, you might not know how to fight a player like this because we don't really have a spammable. All you really want to do is just keep Power of the Light, Poison Injection, and just kite around him, hit him with a few crit rushes, but don't commit to any heavy offensive combo. Just whittle him down. Make him spend some resources. Make him heal himself a bit. Check his healing power. Check his defenses. You know, make him expend a bit of his own stuff, and then we'll be able to do something with it. There you see we set the full combo on this guy there into the Berserker Strike for the kill. A little bit of delay off the crit rush there. The change with the Javelin on that max damage crit rush combo. In this new patch with the Javelin not knocking the opponent back, we would have got the crit rush a lot faster there. So it would have been a little bit cleaner and smoother of a kill in the Murkmire patch. But anyway, and as you can see there, as soon as another player showed up, we just switched target off the tank. And now that the tank is the only player left, we're just going to go back to just whittling him down. And we really don't want to commit too heavily to any offensive pressure until we kind of have the opportunity to really kill him. And as you can see here, he's starting to get closer to that halfway mark on his HP. He's not rocking a ton of healing power, more just a max HP tank spec than anything else. And we're just going to keep putting a bit of pressure on him. All we have to do is get him into a position where he thinks he's safe and we might be able to take him down. There you see, we stun him with the Javelin. He gets a nice big heal as he gets up there. That's about as close as we'll get to bringing him down, and the other players show up, and we're just going to do a little bit of a kite behind the terrain here and just split them up a tad before we re-engage. Because we did use a bit of stamina beating on that tank, but like I said, we definitely kept enough in the reserve in case something else showed up. We didn't want to overcommit to trying to kill the tank there. And as you can see here, we're just going to come around the corner and re-engage with these guys. The guy on the hills just whipping some light attacks, missing them. So we're going to try to target him. He's looking pretty nice and squishy. There you see we get him with the Berserker Strike as our ult comes up. Nice clean kill on him there. And then we're just going to peel back behind the rocks, making sure to pump our rally, pump our purges as we come back behind the rock, remove those negative effects. So important on Ghost to be purging those negative effects. There you see we remove the power of the light, making sure that we won't take the additional burst damage. Here you see we take a bad stun. However, we're not taking a lot of damage, so I just waited out on the ground. I think we had the stam to break it, and then we just go right into the purge. These guys keep piling on us, and we're just going to use our speed, and we're going to use our purge to kite these guys out. We get another stun there. Just go for our potion into a rally, back up to full health, and then we're just going to peel to these rocks here. Don't go too close to the guards because we don't need the negates and stuff coming down. So as you can see here, we're just going to do a little bit of running backwards. Just spread these guys out. They're kind of piled up now. The ideal way to kind of do this is spread them a little bit. And as they trickle in one at a time, we're just going to turn around, fence them a little bit, and then just keep on moving backwards to keep that group spreading. My plan here is to loop around the top on here and get that height advantage. So important when playing solo to have a height advantage in PvP. And here you see with that advantage, we're able to mitigate the damage that the other players can throw on us simply because they can't target us from down at the bottom there. And it leaves us to fight these two guys up top without taking too much damage from the other players. There you see we get the Binding Javelin, Berserker Strike, Executioner, massive combo to bring that guy down there. Here it comes again. We go for the Binding Javelin, execute to bring him down. Lots of damage on that Sork. He did not have the shield up. And yeah, that's two guys down super fast there. And then we're just going to turn and re-engage with this Stam Sork here. Stam Sork can be pretty tricky, I think, on Ghost because we are very squishy and they have a lot of undodgeable damage that can proc Implosion. So fighting a Stam Sork, you just want to be patient and careful. They're very fast too, so they can stay on top of you. That's kind of like... Honestly, Stam Sork is one of the trickier things to fight on a build like this. Stam Sork, Stam Nightblade. And it's just because they're kind of hard to kite and they have all that AoE pressure. But as you can see here, we go for the precog. We managed to pull a good maneuver there, just kind of kiting these guys out. And we get up to the rocks here and we get our height again on these guys. Very important, like I said, to make sure that we keep that height. And the Stam Sork is the only player still on top of me here. Like I said, the Stam Sork is tricky because they have all that AoE pressure that is undodgeable. And they're very fast, so he gets to stay on top of me. Unfortunately, he's having a little bit of issues with the terrain there, so we buy just a little bit of time, which is nice. We do get the full stamina pool, which is really good. And here we fake running up the hill. One guy jumps, the other one doesn't, waiting for us to run back around. So we just kind of kite back in behind him there, just kind of reacting to what our opponents did after what we did there, and then going from there. Instead of... committing to running back up the hill, just watching how they move. Here you see we go for another kind of turn here. We catch the Stam Sork in a nice spot here by himself. Here comes the other player around the side there. We go for the stun on the Sork, and I feel like that was way too aggressive. We take a really bad stun from that DK there. And yeah, here you see the Hurricane, the Leap, the Steel Tornado, a lot of AoE damage, and our health was just too low after that bad stun. We're going to go down. Anyway, guys, this next fight here, we're riding on our horse, and of course, we get ganked by a couple blues. So, what do? We turn and fight, baby. We take the first guy down, Pottle Poison Injection, throw the Javelin, bring him down with the Execute. This guy drops the Ballista. We make sure to dodge roll the initial Ballista attack there, and then we go for a roll on the Execute finish on him there, making sure to mitigate that Ballista damage, and we can still bring him down at the same time. And we're just going to turn and attack the yellow now, I guess, because, well, here are the yellows. This guy here goes into his mist. We dot him up with Power of the Light, Poison Injection. He purges it right away. Great call. And we take a gank from a Nightblade on the side here. We're just going to go right behind the pillar here, mitigating his bow ultimate there with line of sight. Get him with a really nice stun there and the light attack Executioner to bring him down. He did go for the dodge roll there. I feel like maybe his end might have been lagging a bit, because he should have rolled that attack according to what I saw on my screen, but he ended up just going down anyway. This guy ends up getting the res off. I'm not going to try to keep the res, to keep the dead players down over there. It's just not safe. There's too many enemy players, and of course it's right next to the keep wall in the open like that. So I'm just going to stick behind my little pillar here of wood, or my wooden palisade, and just kind of fight these guys. This guy, the Templar's throwing a lot of the reflect bubbles on me. It's kind of good and bad. It's bad because I might eat a nasty reflect, but if I'm quick and I purge it, it's free CC immunity that does not cost stamina in order to get it. So it kind of gives me the ability to just push my stam pool a little bit further by using that purge smartly. And I think it's a very good way to use purge on the Templar whenever you get eclipsed. Purge the eclipse, save yourself the stamina. Works really well for a Templar. As you can see here, we're taking a lot of pressure from all sides. They've kind of converged on me. We take a bad stun there. I know the stun's coming, so we wait for it, go into the precog, and as soon as we teleport, we're just going to change direction and sprint back the other way. This is just a standard kind of precog split. A really good thing to learn to do on a build like this for world PvP. Run in one direction, precog back the way that you came, and then go the other way. It just allows you to really make serious distance between you and opposing players. Not only that, but as you can see, a majority of them didn't even know where I went. We actually completely managed to break line of sight, which is really, really nice. And we're just going to pop into stealth here, and we're going to go ghost stealth mode on these guys, see if we can... What am I doing, man? Got to get a gank, I guess. Okay, so we're just going to buff up, I guess, and maybe go for a gank here. Who are we going to try to attack? I know it's coming. Here we go. This guy right here. We go for the heavy attack into the javelin. Oh, my God. We probably could have done the bow heavy attack, crit rush, light attack, executioner. Would have been a cleaner combo. We go for the mist into the tower there. Precog out of it. Yet again, doing the same switch and bait with the precog. Managing to pull the group apart yet again, and we're just going to do a turn here, and they're not even going to follow. Anyhow, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to hit that like and subscribe button. Post any questions or comments that you have on the comment section for the video as well. If you guys want to catch some live gameplay, I play live on Twitch, so you guys can check that out. We are sponsored by What the Fast. They're a VPN for gamers. Give me some better ping to ESO. Free to try if you guys get crap ping and maybe want to alleviate that. No harm, no foul if you want to give it a shot. And then finally, we have community content. If you guys have cool builds or cool PvP footage that you want to feature on the channel, you can send it my way to KristoferESO@hotmail.com, and maybe we'll feature your build. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I hope to see you next time. Have a great night.